Navamsha is the chart of dharma. Dharma is a word that people often don't understand in this particular context, especially. Dharma here means the essence of a thing. So this chart is about the essence of you. Like, for example, water. The dharma of water, or one of the dharmas of water, is wetness. If it's not wet, it's not water. Fire, one of the dharmas of it is brightness. If it's not bright, it's not fire. So the Navamsha talks about your dharma. What is it about you that is essential to the very identity of yourself? So we could say it's about your true self, the real you. It doesn't mean that the main chart is not talking about you. But the main chart is like the face of the clock, and this Navamsha is like the way that the clock ticks. So it's talking about the traits and everything, the motivations that generate the more obvious character traits that are on your surface that you see in the main chart. So when you act in ways that are aligned with the Navamsha symbolism, you feel real. You feel natural. You feel okay. You feel like, oh yeah, I can do this. I can keep doing this. When you act in ways that are not aligned with what's in your Navamsha, you feel fake, you feel hollow, you feel like, I don't think I can keep doing this. There's another misconception about the Navamsha, that it's the self which manifests at some particular age or something. This is not the case. The Navamsha is just the true self. But what happens is the more that you are yourself, the better you get to know yourself, and the more you wind up discovering how you tick and what's underneath. So generally speaking, as people get older, they start to figure out the traits about themselves that are the traits which the Navamsha describes. If you want to know what this means to you in your chart, I have just released a brand new and very groundbreaking report that explores exactly that, all of the subdivisions for your chart. It's available now on my site, victorcarrot.com. Let's start off by explaining how you would make your Navamsha, how you would know what your Navamsha chart is. All you do is start with the regular zodiac and then divide every sign into 9 equal parts. Next thing you want to do is identify the nature of each part. So start at the beginning of Aries and identify that one as Aries, and then go in order, natural order from there. When you get to the end of a sign, you don't pay any attention to that. Just keep going in order. And when you get to the end of the zodiac, again, you just keep going. You restart at Aries. So what the Navamsha does is it gives us a complete cycle of zodiac every 40 degrees. This is extremely important to understanding why it's the chart of Dharma and the inner self. Because 40 degrees is a third of 120, which is a trine, which is a third of 360, which is a circle, which is the whole zodiac. And the Navamsha size itself is 3 1/3 degrees. So it's all about thirds and trines are all about Dharma. This trinalness is what makes it the most famous and most important of all the subcharts, because the trine is the most important shape in astrology. And it also makes the patterns in the Navamsha the most solid, the most dharmic, the most integral. Let's take a look at some of those key patterns. First of all, one of the really amazing things about the Navamsha is that every Navamsha is trine to itself. Now, what that also does is it sets up a very interesting trinal situation within each individual zodiac sign. So for every single sign, the first, middle, and last Navamsha of that sign will be the trines of that sign. For Aries, for example, its trines are Leo and Sagittarius. So the Navamshas of Aries begin with Aries and then go to its trines. In the middle, it's Leo, and at the end, it's Sagittarius. And this same pattern is true for every single zodiac sign. So each Navamsha is trine to itself, and each zodiac sign contains its own trine. at its beginning, middle, and end. So what does that tell you about what this chart is symbolizing? It symbolizes dharma, which means to have integrity and to be true to your essence. Because every single sign has its own element at its beginning, in its middle, and at its end. It means it's consistent and it's itself from the start to the end and everywhere in between. And that's what dharma means. That's what integrity means. That's what consistency means. The inner tickings of a thing, supporting, not contradicting, but supporting and being harmonious with the outer workings of the thing. The navamsha is the inner tickings. The outer workings is the main zodiac sign. Another really illustrative thing about the nature of this navamsha and how it symbolizes dharma is that the first navamsha of any sign is always cardinal. Now that's more than just curious, because it's showing the exact integrity of what cardinality itself is. Cardinality itself is defined as the first, the beginner, the initiator. Because the very definition of what a cardinal sign is the sign which is right after the equinox or solstice. It's the first sign in every tropical quadrant of the zodiac. So since cardinality means firstness, it keeps that integrity in the navamsha, and it's always the first navamsha in every sign. Not only that, but the middle navamsha of every sign is always fixed. That again shows the exact same integrity of dharma. The very nature of fixedness means to be in the middle, because the fixed signs are defined as being right in the middle of their tropical quadrants in the main zodiac. So keeping the integrity of what it means to be fixed, fixed signs in the navamsha are always right in the middle of every zodiac sign. Finally, the last navamsha of every single zodiac sign is always dual. And you guessed it, this keeps the integrity of what it means to be a dual sign. Dual signs are defined as the last sign in each tropical quadrant of the zodiac. So remaining true to themselves, in the navamsha, they're always the last navamsha of every single zodiac sign. There's even more beauty, really, and symmetry in this navamsha patterning that really reveals what dharmicness means. The first navamsha of every cardinal sign is always the same as that sign. So the first navamsha of Aries is Aries, the first navamsha of Cancer is Cancer, etc. And again, this keeps with the integrity of the dharma of what it means to be cardinal. It means to be first. Firstness is important. So in cardinal signs, they are themselves in the navamsha in the first division. Similarly, the fixed signs are themselves in the navamsha in the middle division. And that again keeps in perfect dharma with what it means to be a fixed sign. Fixed signs are defined as being in the middle. And finally, the dual signs are themselves in the navamsha in the last division. And that keeps with the very definition of what it means to be a dual sign, to be last in the tropical quadrant. This also reveals another thing. Like a lot of people think, well, there's a D9 and a D7. Why isn't there a D8? Let's make a D8. There's a D10 and there's a D12. Why isn't there a D11? Let's make an 11th divisional. Well, this is why there's a D9. It's because the size of the division makes these incredible patterns that work in creating a symbolism. Now that you know what the navamsha is, let's talk about how you figure out what your navamsha positions are. All that you need to do is put your planetary placements in the navamsha wheel, and you can kind of see visually what navamshas they're in. You can also be exact about it, do it by math. All you would need to do is divide the sign degree of any planet by the size of the navamsha, and that would tell you which navamsha that planet is in. Your next step is just to take a chart, blank chart, and take the navamsha sign of the ascendant and write that into the first house of the blank chart. And then just go in order from there to define the second, third, fourth houses and so on of this navamsha chart. Once you've done that, All you need to do is put the planets into their spots. So in this example, Rahu is in the Cancer division of Pisces. So put it in Cancer in the Navamsha chart. And then Saturn is also in the Cancer division, but it's in the Cancer division of Taurus. So it winds up with Rahu in Cancer of the Navamsha. And what that is telling us at a glance, by looking at the D9, by looking at the Navamsha chart, you see Rahu and Saturn together. You know there's some multiple of a third away from each other. They're either 120 degrees or 80 degrees or 40 degrees. In this case, they're almost exactly 80 degrees away from each other. That's why they both wound up in the same Navamsha sign. Similarly, this moon is in Scorpio and this Mercury is also in Scorpio. And they're exactly 80 degrees apart, more or less. So they wind up together in the same Navamsha sign. The Sun and Mars are in the identical zodiac sign together in Taurus. So they both wind up in Taurus. Ketu is in Capricorn Navamsha, which works out because it's exactly opposite to Rahu's Cancer Navamsha. So it's another reason why Navamsha is a subchart that works and is used, and other weird ones like D42 isn't used. Finally, you see this Navamsha has a lot of pairings. You have Jupiter and Venus both in Gemini Navamshas, and these are exactly 40 degrees apart. Now you have a Navamsha chart, and you can interpret it like a chart. You can do house placements and so forth, dignities and so on. And you just tailor all the interpretations to be relevant specifically towards how this person ticks. What are their true motivations? What makes them feel real? What makes them feel fake? What are they good at, bad at, instinctively? So, of course, in my report, I do that for you. And I give you a couple of other bigger tools for interpreting this Navamsha. The first of which, the most kind of basic yet useful in a big grand way, is to just get a pulse of the whole Navamsha chart as a unit. Take all the dignities of every planet and every house in the Navamsha and average them up. Then you'll get a sense of what the Navamsha's overall dignity is. The more dignified your Navamsha is overall, the more you will find it easy to have dharma. In other words, to act in such a way that feels real, feels natural, feels sustainable. And the more advantageous it is to your outcomes of your action to do so. Conversely, the less positivity you have in a Navamsha, the more difficult you'll find it to feel like you're really yourself, to feel like you're really being who you want to be and need to be. And also, the more that you kind of create problems by being who you are, the more that you need to be careful about your kind of instinctual tickings and motivations. So that's undoubtedly an extremely useful tool for interpreting about your dharma. Going beyond that, or kind of drilling more deeply into that, the report also gives you a sorted list of the planets in the Navamsha, and they're sorted in terms of how dominant they are here in the Navamsha. So this is dominance specific to the Navamsha. The higher the planet is in this list, the more dominant. The lower it is, the less dominant, and therefore the more subliminal in how it contributes to your inner motivations. It's not necessarily that the more subliminal planets are less important, especially as you go very deep down, because those get to be the underlying ones that are kind of not really in the foreground themselves, but in the background of everything else. But certainly the planets that are towards the top and the more dominant planets in the Navamsha will be the ones that you will more quickly and easily notice and recognize as being, this is who I am. This is who I need to be. This is who I want to be. So in this particular case, it looks like Mercury and the Moon are very dominant planets. So your interpretation for that is going to be mercurial and lunar. This person's ticking, the motivations for this person. The real person here underneath the behavior is mercurial and lunar. So emotional or pensive or introspective, thoughtful, likes ideas, etc. That's your guess, and it's an accurate guess by looking just at this sorted list. But of course, you want to go into more detail. So I give you like a verbalized translation of the list as well, which helps get you started. Really, the key things on this list are the little symbols, whether it's an upside down triangle or a right side up triangle or a flag. For example, you could see here this moon has an upside down triangle in front of it. And what that means is this thing is dominant in your navamsha. This moon is dominant in this person's navamsha, but it doesn't have a great dignity. So essentially, this is something about your inner tickings that is problematic for you. So that's going to mean it's going to feel difficult for you to get this the way you want it. And you're going to cause problems for yourself by seeking it, by trying to fulfill it. I'll show you how to get more detail on this in a second, but right now let's just jump ahead and look at the right side up triangles. There's 3 of them down at the bottom of this list for Mars, Rahu, and Ketu. Upside down triangle means here's something which is low in your dominance list, but has positive dignity. So these are things that would work good for you and that would kind of come easy for you in terms of feeling solid and feeling satisfying, yet you seldom recourse to them enough. You should kind of pull these up and play these up more and rely on these more because they perform well for you. Finally, there's the flag on this list. What flags help you identify is where you have a harsh transition between one thing and another. Because the sorting of the list isn't arbitrary, the less dominant the planet is, the more subliminal it becomes. So it means that the lower planets on the list are the foundations. So in other words, this person has the sun coming after the moon in terms of dominance. That means that the sun is the basis. So it's meaning like their confidence and so forth, things that sun symbolizes, is what's driving and holding up their heart and mind and emotional stuff. So that gets a flag. Why? Because the moon and the sun are 2 very different planets, and to have one holding up the other is a likely source of confusion for you, especially as a native who has this flag, and also for other people trying to figure you out and have relationships with you. Because you'll be exploring this emotional thing, but then when you get to the root of it, it's got this big, confident, non-emotional, very extroverted thing. And the connection between those 2 is confusing. The advice for you, where you do have flags, is to be more cautious about the transition of things, how you transition from one thing to another. For this person, how do you transition from being emotional and having opinions and everything into stating clear-cut decisions? So how do your clear-cut opinions really affect your emotions, and how are you expressing your emotions based on these clear-cut opinions? Make it more gentle. Slow it down. It's got a flag, so gentleize it and slow it down. Slow down the transition. So whatever the flags are between in your chart, that's the template that you apply. Finally, the real thing that you really want to do with the Navamsha is dig all the way into it and actually look at the chart itself. So once you have this sorted list as your starting point, and then you can flesh it out fully. You can flesh out the understanding and the symbolism fully by looking at the sign in the house. So, first of all, you would look at Mercury and the moon, because that's at the top of the Navamsha list for this person. So I bet they're intellectual and pensive and so forth, right? Because they have moon and Mercury at the top of their Navamsha. Yes. And now take a look at the chart itself. It's in Scorpio, 4th house. So it isn't exactly a happy moon, but it is a super deep one. And that Mercury isn't really like a go out and meet people and have parties kind of Mercury. It's like an intellectual, meditative Mercury. On top of that, you would notice that the moon is the 12th lord in the 4th house in this chart. And in the 12th house is Rahu with Saturn. So a lot of what's making this person tick is dissatisfaction, emotional dissatisfaction. And that's why when you see this navamsha, you don't think this is a typical yuppie or somebody who wants to like get ahead socially or have a career. Career is not a big motivating factor for them. It's more along the lines of this person is probably going to be the one who gets into meditation or magic, mysticism, occult, astrology. Then again, you might see this Sun and Mars in the 10th house with great dignity. But don't like completely disjoint it from the planets that are at the top of the dominance list. So notice that the Sun is the 1st lord and Mars is the 9th lord. They're joining in the 10th house. So it's great for the navamsha and it's great for dharma in general to have that Raj Yoga in the 10th house. But also the joining of the 1st and the 9th lord shows a philosophical or religious nature. And that's dominant in the 10th house. And that is now playing in with the moon and Mercury in Scorpio in the 4th house, with the moon being the 12th lord, with Saturn and Rahu and Cancer in the 12th house. So it's making it more clear that this person is really motivated by mystical or occult things. And they're very confident about it, and they're willing to do extroversive things about it. It's not just like an internal passion. They will change their external life about it. And you can see that from the Sun and Mars being in the 10th house. Another interesting thing is you can see Jupiter and Venus in the 11th house here. And so it's showing you that they're not exactly an ascetic. They're not like a renunciate so much. They're artistic and they have taste and they don't really live an uncomfortable life because they have these two benefics in the 11th house. So that's a look at the navamsha and how much information it can really reveal for an individual. I'm sure you would love to know what it reveals about you. And that's why I have made the report that I just released that will tell you exactly that. Now, the only remaining question is, how do you get this report so that you can get this information for yourself? That's fairly easy. You go to my website, victorcara.com, and you click on the readings link, and then you select what module you want. If you want the basic chart interpreted, get the basic module. And if you want all of your subdivisions, including the navamsha interpreted, then you click to include also the subdivisions module. And then you click this to enter your birth data, and then you click this button to order it. Please don't forget to like and comment, and your likes and your comments help YouTube recognize that this video is something that should be shown to new people. So please help out with that. Thank you so much.